There comes a time in every fandom that's continuously putting out new content for long enough where something comes out that is controversial or different than what was put out before, and it threatens to rip the entire fandom apart. Now, the fandom can either survive this and maybe even get stronger for it, like Percy Jackson did with the TV show, or Avatar The Last Airbender did with Legend of Korra, or it can completely rip the fandom apart, like Star Wars when the prequels were released, and then the sequels were released, and then the Disney Plus shows were released. And Stranger Things almost made it through without this happening. It was so close. And then season 5 had to come out. And it is such a mess of emotions and finale, and it just it made people mad. But some people loved it. And so I thought I would make this video here today just completely unscripted, just talking off the cuff about what I think worked, what I think didn't work, and just try to debrief the series, just the season, just for myself, if not for anything else, just to get my thoughts straight. Major spoiler warnings for Stranger Things Season 5, obviously. There's this theory going around called Cutgate, that Netflix forced the Duffer Brothers to cut a lot more content than they wanted to, and I have to say, there's a lot of pretty good evidence for that. Even with things like multiple actors teasing scenes that never ended up happening. Apparently, Mike's actor and Holly's actor both teased this big scene between Mike and Will in the basement of the radio station, and it was supposed to be this big emotional moment, and that just never happened. You have basically everyone in the cast saying that Stranger Things Season 5 was going to be like 8 movies, and a lot of the episode runtimes are shorter than Season 4 runtimes. The Duffer Brothers said it was going to be a very dark Christmas in regards to the second volume, and nothing really dark happened in it. They also said that the final episode was going to feature the most violent death of the series, and I'm just left wondering, what death was that? And outside of that, the season just felt so much more impersonal and corporatized than the other seasons did, and a big part of that is probably the product placements that are just so egregious that they make me think this entire season was just made for the ads. Not just the ads outside the show, but Murray showing up and saying, "Hey guys, look what I got. Gatorade to replenish your thirst." And they're like, "Oh my god, I'm so thirsty. Gatorade's the best." It feels so disingenuous and so unneeded, and stuff like that makes it feel like it was written by a bunch of execs in suits. And then you have some other things that suggest that stuff was cut, like Dustin giving it to the principal in the epilogue of the show. When we never really dealt with that principal at all, it feels like they just made a villain out of nothing. It feels like there's history there that we're missing. And yes, I know that Dustin is doing this because Eddie said that was what he was going to do when he graduated, but it still just feels off because this principal is made out to be this villain in the last 15 minutes of the show that we've never really seen before. It's really strange. And then there's stuff like the final conversation between Hop and Elle, where Elle wants to jump on these floating rocks to get to Dimension X, and Hop's like, "No, it's too dangerous." And they have this really long conversation about how Hop has to let Elle be brave and do these things that he's not comfortable with her doing, and then they skip over her jumping up the rocks. They make this such a big point that this is a really dangerous thing she's doing, she might not make it, and then they skip over it when it actually comes to showing it. It's just so weird, and it really points to so much stuff being cut. And speaking of Elle, I feel like she was nerfed considerably this season. Last season, she was pulling down helicopters with her mind. In Season 1, even going back to Season 1, she's flipping vans. In this season, she struggles to raise a metal plate and then right a truck that was downed. It just feels like they didn't give her enough to do, and what they did, they made her struggle way too much with. She should be back to the prime of her powers. And then they bring in this whole recharge thing, which is a very small part of her powers in the other seasons. They talk about it every once in a while. I actually didn't remember this. My sister reminded me that this was a thing. But they talk about it so little that I forgot it was a thing. And then every 5 minutes in Season 5, it's like, "Oh, her battery's depleted. She needs to recharge." And it just feels like it's only being used as a plot device. And whatever they feel like she needs to recharge, she is. Because remember, in Season 2, there's the whole Lost Sister episode where she's using her powers continuously, and they never show her recharging. Or they never show her recharging after she closes the gate. It just feels so arbitrary and Elle wasn't at her prime when she really should have been. Now, on the flip side of Elle getting nerfed, I think Mike was really great this season. He wasn't as awesome as I wanted him to, because another thing, the Duffer Brothers were constantly building up that Mike is the heart of the gang, and he was going to be the leader in this season, and he doesn't do that much. He has the one really good scene where he's like protecting all of the kids from all the Demogorgons in episode 4, which is such a good scene. Both how it's shot in one continuous shot and showing Mike being this protector that he's supposed to be, but we never really get that again. But what we do get of Mike this season is really good because Mike is one of my least favorite characters in this show. He's so bratty and so whiny, and yet this season he was written so well, and that was gone, and he was constantly stepping back and looking at his emotions and how he was interacting with others and being like, hey, maybe I should have been better in this department, like his conversation with Will in the final episode. And speaking of Mike, I liked him in the epilogue a lot, how he was having the struggle between moving on and not, and then the D&D where we finally see once again that he is the heart, he is the one leading this campaign, he is the storyteller that's in charge of telling all these stories, which leads into the Elle thoughts when is Elle still alive or is she not alive? Which I think for the most part is pretty well handled. I'm not the biggest fan of the implications that leaves because Elle has spent her entire life being screwed over by the American government and being on the run from them and being hunted. And in the end, the American government wins because to get away from them, she doesn't beat them. She has to, once again, run and hide. And while I do kind of appreciate how ambiguous Elle's ending is, and I think it takes a lot of balls for the Duffer Brothers to actually do that with how baby-footed they've felt the rest of the season with not killing basically anybody else. I still would have liked a little more confirmation, like giving Mike some like if even if Mike just went out into the world to look for Elle at the end instead of being what seems to be like he wants to be a writer. I think that would have done a lot better and making me think that the ending was a bit better, but I really did enjoy the ending. I'm not one of those people who really hated this season. I just thought it was disappointing. But that doesn't mean it's completely bad. I think there's a lot of good things that are done in it, like this ending. And I have to say, when they put all of their D&D stuff away and all of the gang goes upstairs and then Holly and her friends come down to the basement and they start trying to figure out this D&D thing, that made me tear up a lot. And the fact that they're just moving it on to the next generation coming in and filling in this gap that's going to be left when they all go off to college and go their separate ways. And that transitions us into Holly and gang, where I think that Holly and Derek were really, really good additions this season. I really liked both of them a lot. I think Holly maybe got a little too much screen time in comparison to the legacy characters who have been here for seasons, but I really liked everything that was shown for both of them. And I was kind of on the Derek hate train before the season came out, and he got his own poster along with all the legacy cast, and everyone was like, who the heck is this kid? And I was kind of on that train, but Derek really proved me wrong, and I really liked his mini little arc and Holly's little mini arc that they did throughout the season. Speed running through some other characters, Murray sucked this season, and that's not just because his actor is a Zionist piece of crap. He just did not fit whatsoever, and whatever personality and whatever emotion he had was just the wrong one for that scenario. He was so annoying and so badly done this season, where in season 4, yes, he's funny and he's sarcastic, but he's funny and sarcastic to fit the narrative and what is actually happening, where it feels like they wrote Murray's dialogue in a void without knowing anything else about the season because the way he reacts to everything is just bad. I can't believe we got no Susie and Dr. Owens at all. Even in the epilogue, like I get maybe you can't put them in the rest of the season because they're quarantined, but you got to put them in the epilogue at least, especially with Dustin flirting with that other girl. Like we need some confirmation that Susie is out of the picture, that they broke up, because Susie is a fan favorite character and she's in like 2 scenes in the entire show. And to have such a fan favorite character who's in that little of the show, you have to acknowledge her and you have to give her a reason not to be there. Same with Dr. Owens. Joyce also did nothing this season. The only thing of value that she really contributed was hacking Vecna's head off after he was already dying and impaled. Like, she is so boring this season. She just does not do enough. And it's very sad because I love Joyce. I'm a Joyce stan. She is so good. She's such a strong, independent, single mom for so much of the show. And in season 1, she really thrived. And even in the other seasons, in season 5, she just was bland. Kali really sucked. I was so excited when they reintroduced Kali because I'm one of the very few people who does not hate the Lost Sister episode. It's not my favorite episode, but I don't hate it, and I really did enjoy Kali. And so I was really excited to bring her back, only for her to be the most annoying, pessimistic piece of crap in the entire season. I actually did really like Dustin and Steve's relationship. I thought I wasn't sure about it at the beginning with them fighting. I was like, oh, I want the two besties to be friends. But then they have the whole discussion about Eddie and how afraid Dustin is of Eddie. It's what happened to Eddie happening again. And I really, really like that scene. And I really wish we got more of them after that scene because they weren't really a pair after that because the whole gang got together. Around the same time they had that conversation, Jonathan and Nancy had their conversation, and it's the worst written scene potentially in any show I've ever watched. And I made a short about this, so I'm not going to be super long about this. But God, it's not a media literacy thing. It's a writing thing. I cannot believe the people who are saying it is the viewers' fault for not understanding this one specific thing that was written so vaguely that the Duffer Brothers had to go onto like X or Twitter or something and clarify it. That's just not good writing. Max and Lucas, as always, is the best couple of the show, and they needed more time together after Max gets out of the coma. But speaking of Max's coma, there's just so much weirdness around it. Her and Will seem to have this like deeper relationship than they ever had before, which people are saying that was one of the things cut, that Will and Max were supposed to have a journey together in Camazotz. It's this, and that was cut, and it's the same with Max and Elle's reunion, where they were such close friends, and they have not seen each other since season 3. And so their reunion would have been so awesome, and it was just the smallest little like, oh, you're alive again. Yeah, I'm back. But that also is a thing that people say was cut, that they also met in Camazotz. I thought Will was pretty good this season overall as well. I enjoyed his arc. I wasn't a big fan of his coming out scene, but not for the reason a lot of people are. I think a lot of people are like, oh, it ruined the pacing of the episode. It's such a weird spot to do it. And I disagree with that. I think it was actually explained very well why Will needed to do that, because he didn't want Vecna using any of his fears against him, and so he had to make sure that this was not a fear that could be used. So I think that works really well. I just think the scene itself was so cringy, and it was so cheesy and cringy. I mean, I'm not gay, so I probably maybe shouldn't be talking about this, but I just think Robin's coming out scene was such a better modern coming out scene. I feel like society, we have kind of moved past the being gay and coming out needs to be this huge grand spectacle, because gay people are just people too, and who they love shouldn't have to be this big spectacle, which is why I love how low key Robin is coming out to Steve. And I just don't think Will needed this huge big thing, especially because he's not the first character in the show who's gay. Hopper wanting to die this season was also very strange. I don't know why he was so suicidal, but every time like a bomb was mentioned, he was like, oh, oh, oh. He was like a moth to a flame. Um, when it came to blowing himself up, it was kind of funny in how blatant it was. Another thing that was kind of funny with how often it came up was the analogies. And I love the videos, the shorts I'm seeing of people being like, every 5 minutes in Stranger Things season 5, this is Vecna. And this is the upside down. Vecna is on top of the upside down. So we need to punch through it. It's so funny that they did that every 5 seconds, because in the other season, it's used sparingly to explain one or two things throughout a season. It's like, no, every 5 minutes, we must use an analogy. It's like written in the contract or something, which it might be because of the Netflix second screen thing, where their shows have to be written so someone doing their laundry and not really paying attention can still understand it, which is not the proper way to make a show, Netflix. Please change that. And when you buy out Warner Bros., please don't make them do that same thing, because it's not good writing. Anyway, the giant spider was awesome. I think that was awesome. Like, say anything you want about the show, they never miss when it comes to monster designs. It was impeccable. It was so cool and so well done. I just wish we got more of the Mind Flayer in this season because he's not revealed to be the main villain until the final episode. It's Vecna the entire time. So, and I think the Mind Flayer is a much better main villain because I love the idea of this, like, Lovecraft. I love a good Lovecraftian horror, which is really what the Mind Flayer is. And so the fact that we didn't really get him until the final episode is kind of sad. Speaking of the Mind Flayer, they should not have tried to explain it. They should not have tried to explain Dimension X and Henry's connection to it because I think you don't need to, especially with horror. You don't need to explain everything. It can be just ambiguous. I was completely fine being like, all right, Vecna has this weird connection to the Upside Down, to the Mind Flayer, to this Dimension X, and he's using it to be evil. And I'm completely fine with that. But the fact that they're trying to explain it with this, like, him going into this mine and find this weird rock piece and that connected him to the Mind Flayer, but it's never really explained who that dude is and why he's so paranoid and why he has the rock of the Mind Flayer in the first place. And it left more questions than it did answers, and so I think that wasn't needed. Unless I think it might tie into the play, which I think is another bad thing. There should have been no ties to the play whatsoever. The play should be its standalone thing because it's only playing in like Broadway or something like that, and people don't have the money to travel to New York, let alone buy tickets to this massive Broadway play. Um, and I just think it's a disservice to your fans. Not only if there was a spin-off show, right, and explained this, and then you had to watch the spin-off show to get that, I still don't like that. But the fact that it was a play that is not recorded, you have to go see it in person, is ridiculous. It's the same thing with like showing Henry in high school. Like, wasn't he like in the lab with Brenner at that time? Why is he in high school? It's never explained, and I feel like it ties into the play, which I've never seen, so I don't know. I think that's ridiculous. And speaking of these spin-offs and these things that aren't completely explained, I have seen some things saying that there is a spin-off that will be made by the Duffer Brothers, and that it's going to explain a lot of the plot holes left in this season, which is the wrong way to write a show. That's just objectively bad writing. As much as I enjoy the MCU, it has done potentially irreversible damage to the way movies and shows are written because now you just don't have to explain anything because you can like, oh, go watch this other project that's going to come out in 2.5 years to know this. It's like, no, things should be their own closed storylines, and then if you want to fit them together in some fun crossover, be my guest, but don't make it necessary to understand stuff. It's even going into that with like Star Wars shows. Like every Star Wars show is so connected to each other, and it just shouldn't be that way. Everything should be its standalone story. Vecna was, but going back to the opposite of things I liked, Vecna was so good. I loved him. I loved that we got to see more of him as Henry and outside of the makeup and stuff like that because Jamie Campbell Bower, he's such a good actor. He was so captivating that I'm glad we got a lot of him without the makeup on. And I think the way it was all done was really, really well. So Vecna was really, really great, and I liked how him and Will had that one conversation in the final episode where he's like, yeah, no, I'm being controlled by the Mind Flayer, but I'm choosing to be controlled. I don't need, I am evil, which I think is good because I've said it before on my YouTube channel. I'm not a big fan of villain redemption arcs. There's very few that I like, and I'm glad that Vecna did not get one. But the Upside Down is completely different than it used to be. And this isn't a season 5 complaint. This is a show complaint in general, where in season 1 of the show, the one guy goes into the Upside Down, and he's killed immediately. And that's already changed by the end of season 1, because Hop and Joyce go to the Upside Down, and they're fine. But each season, the Upside Down has just gotten less and less scary and less dangerous, which I'm not sure was the right play. I 100% see why they did it, because the Upside Down is really cool. And exploring it more is really cool. And I liked the wall, and I liked the explanation that it was a bridge and everything. But it's not, you cannot say it's the same Upside Down from season 1. It's very different. It feels like season 4 and 5 are like a different universe to the main storyline. Also, after episode 4, where are all the Demogorgons? Like, did Will kill all the Demogorgons? Because if he did, that should have been stated, because it doesn't make sense that there's no Demogorgons helping Vecna out after that. Like, why aren't they there? Why aren't they there guarding the giant evil spider base or guarding the kids in this? I don't know. I just feel like there was some weird stuff with them because the Demogorgon is like the main monster of Stranger Things. It's the most identifiable, and so uh, making them bigger role in those first 4 episodes makes sense. But why aren't they there outside of that? I don't know. Is that I've been going for 25 minutes. And I think I've gone over everything on my list I have here, right? Cut content. No, oh my god, I forgot one thing. I did really like the epilogue overall. I think the last episode really brought it back. I think the first 4 episodes were underwhelming, but overall good. Volume 2 kind of sucked. It wasn't great. It had some really good things, a lot of really bad things. I think the ending, the final episode, really brought it all back together and was still really, really good. I really like how it ended. I like all of that. But my favorite scene in the final episode, in the epilogue, is the scene between the college kids of Nancy, Robin, Jonathan, and Steve. I think that was really, really well done. I think that was really good. I like that they're all spread out over the place, and yet they still miss their time together. I think all of what they did works. I love that Steve is a PE and sex ed teacher, or a coach and sex ed teacher, though you would still need a 4-year degree to teach sex ed. Maybe not in the 80s, I don't know, but it kind of doesn't make sense that he didn't go to college, but whatever. I think Nancy dropping out of college very much fits with her character. Jonathan, being an anti-capitalist, I'm all here for. I just wish it was established a little bit earlier because I kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. But I'm all here for that. And I think everything's really good, except for Vicky. Where was Vicky in the end? Why wasn't Robin with Vicky? And do not say that it's because Vicky sold them out to the government, because she didn't. I've seen that multiple times online now. There was an entire scene that showed the government learning their plans so they knew where to be. Vicky did not sell them out. Please stop saying that. You're lending credence to the people who are saying the Jonathan and Nancy scene is only bad if you don't have media literacy. Because, the Jonathan and Nancy scene is bad. But saying that Vicky sold them out is not being media efficient. You just missed an entire scene. Were you folding laundry when you were watching Stranger Things if you thought that? Because you missed an entire scene. That's not the reason that Vicky's not there. Vicky's not there, I don't know, but it's not that. And I think it's completely fine for Vicky and Robin not to be in a relationship with each other. I would have liked to see the Enzo date. Like, we finally got the Joyce and Hopper Enzo date, and he proposed, and it was awesome, and I love the fact that they're moving on with their lives and getting out of this godforsaken town of Hawkins. But I would have loved to see that with Robin and Vicky. But if they broke up, that's fine, because like relationships at that age don't last. But you have to show that. You can't just write Vicky out entirely. But overall, I think this has been a very negative video. But like I said, it's easier to talk about negatives than positives. And I still really enjoyed this final season. It was not as good as I was hoping it would have been, but I wouldn't call it bad. It's just disappointing. That's my big overarching thing, right? It's not bad, it's just disappointing. My final rankings of the Stranger Things seasons from worst to best is 5, 2, 4, 1, and then my favorite is 3. It's 1 is probably objectively the best, but my favorite individual one is 3. So, there you go. That's all my thoughts. That's everything I had to unpack about Stranger Things Season 5. I want to keep experimenting with different types of videos. I did a trailer react at one point. I've done some shorts that have been reviews of movies. But I wanted to just unpack Stranger Things here and everything that I thought, everything that I wanted to get across. And so if you like this and you want to see more, let me know, because I kind of want to do this for when Percy Jackson Season 2 ends. Other than that, I have a 15-minute review of Avatar Fire and Ash coming out that I did with some friends. I just have to edit that. And then, of course, I have a full scripted video still in the works. It's taken a little while because I got bogged down by the holidays. But, yeah, that should be everything. If you want to watch another video of mine, my last video was about comparing The Last of Us Part 2 versus The Last of Us Season 2, and I'm really proud of that video, and nobody watched it, so please go watch it. Or you can like watch my K-pop Demon Hunters video where I broke down why I think K-pop Demon Hunters and Sony in general works so well. I'm really proud of that one. That one did really well. So if you want more of me, go check out those other videos. Please subscribe and also like. And I will see you pretty soon when I post that Avatar video. Bye bye.